you say, why 3 minutes? Well, let's say you lose a multiplexer path, or something goes wrong with the multiplexer and you just get dead audio coming in, and suddenly everything keys up. Well, finally, what we did to fix that, and excellent customer support when we talked to Raytheon about this, is what he ended up doing is we connect the alarm from the Harris multiplexer to each individual channel on the motor that's referenced to that multiplexer. So if the multiplexer generates a major alarm, it basically takes that card out of service right away. And between these three things, it sort of fixed the issue. But it was a little bit of an issue up front. But still, it's a great product, especially you can talk to it IP, sit back at the shop. All of our sites, we have IP connectivity to all our sites. We use SNMP alarming to send us emails and that kind of thing. You can log on to the motor right from our shop, see everything. They just had a software enhancement that you can even actually put the name of your site into the motor rather than having a cross-reference. So good product. Another lesson learned is if you're doing VHF, don't use strobe lights. Especially if you receive antennas right next to you, don't use strobes on, especially night strobes, red night strobes. Because what they do is they basically pulse it at about 100 hertz rate. And they just keep, that gives you your steady, your steady light. Well, that just generates this giant buzz on the channel. It's bzzz, bzzz, and it just, you forget it. Don't bother use strobes at VHF. We went back to incandescent mainly because, I think if you give it a year or two more, maybe the LED, it's finding along far enough in the reliability curve and that kind of thing. So that was a lesson learned. Do you have a monitor receiver antenna for optimizing? We did this at one county, and we had, basically it was too close to the transmit antenna for that individual site. And it so overloaded the receiver didn't have the correct phase and amplitude. It's not like FM, once your signal is strong, everything is accurate. Actually, it would screw it up a little bit. And so you just moved it, try to get it to a lower antenna than your co-located site, because otherwise you're co-located when you take your reference, it'll be screwed up. Loss of coverage from a moving site, sort of already talked about that one. Avoid low two-tone paging tones. If you've got out there and you use a quick call type two-tone paging, which is very common in the Midwest, if you have existing tones that are below 400 hertz, what happens is your roll off, and when you set all your levels, gets to the point where if you're below that, some of the deviation isn't enough to set off some models of pagers. So our rule is we go out and reprogram everything that's less than 400 hertz rather than bothering with it, because you're just not going to fix it. If you have Synchrocast 2 and Synchrocast 3 in your same system, which we have one system like that, make sure you talk to Harris. They have a little paper that describes how to do that, because there's an offset you have to put in between the two. And we actually went up to optimize that and didn't know that. I fought with it for a day or two, and I called up Harris and they said, well, don't you have the piece of paper? They emailed me the piece of paper, and that was the end of that. So, and finally, one interesting one is we like to label things and have them in little hanging plastic folders and stuff for the text when they go to the site. So we hung one there. And it was real nice until it got sucked into the power supply fan for the microwave system. I took one of the rectifiers out, and that was alarmed, and we got the alarm and we went there. That cost us some money because we have a maintenance contract, and we learned a lesson on that one. So yeah, the point thing is going to get sucked into your power supply fan. So finally, changes for our next generation, the two designs we're putting in now. First, we're going to use the Convex 2240. It should say, instead we used to have a manual switching panel. And you can do all your mixing and transmitter control in one box. It has the PLCT CSS built into the box. You can generate that at your master site. If you want to use Quantar, if you want to do it where you combine both the PL and the audio onto the same screen, which is what we're going to do here, the Quantar has no pre-emphasis on the input. So you have to generate the FM pre-emphasis manually. And that can either be done in the Convex box or the Harris VF40 cards do that. One of the reasons we're changing to this particular method is we can do all the optimization from the master site. We don't have to send guys out to the remote sites to do the PL setting and that kind of thing. Everything you can from the master site. It's more cost effective too, because you don't need to have the PL boxes at every site for all the different channels. You just generate the PL ones. And this depends on the Harris VF40 card. And this is a new card offered by Harris. The VF25 card is a more common one that goes from 300 to 3,000 hertz. The VF40 card is 5 to 3,000 hertz, and it also has some better E&M type control on it, sort of designed for simulcast systems. So with that card, that allowed us to switch to this particular kind of system using the convex and that type of thing. It's a little bit simpler, where we're going to be pushing everything down the microwave path with the PL combined. You do get reverse burst with that, by the way, so you'll still have that.
Would you review the bullet point again, the second bullet point of your contacts?
Simplified transmitter keying.
Second bullet point of your contacts.
Oh. What we're doing is, the way we used to do this, and in the systems I showed you, is we generated the PL at each site using the Spectracom. Spectracom has a box that basically will generate an in-phase PL at each site on each channel, and then we had those boxes. Now instead of doing that, we generate the PL at the master site. We combine that, the PL, with the audio through the convex 2240, send that out to the Quantar, and they have sort of a baseband kind of an input, a special input, which is where we used to inject just the PL. Now we're going to inject the PL and the audio. And then that's how that works.
How do you get the PL to the other side? Is that the VF40?
Yeah. Because the VF40 starts at 5 hertz instead of 300 hertz. So it'll pass the PL basically. So this is a change we're doing in the two systems that we're installing right now. So finally, we have the Motorola Quantar. The Motorola Quantar, basically, we use the baseband audio input for the combined audio. That's a good thing, but there's no limiting or pre-emphasis on that particular input. So you got to be real careful when you're playing with that input. You don't over deviate and that kind of thing. You turn it up, it'll just deviate 4, 5, 6 kilohertz. There's nothing that stops you from over deviating and that kind of thing. The 2240 does have some simple type limiting options in it, using some dials. It distorts things a little bit, but that's probably not too bad if you're really hitting your voice bands, as long as it's matched to all the sites. And finally, last order date for the Quantar is September 2011. This is what we use to date. We're trying to figure out what to do next, and the replacement is the GTR 8000. And Motorola has announced that product is going to be available with both 4-wire input, do an analog, and the VDF24 input. But you can't drop it into an existing simulcast system, for example, and have exactly the same response. So it's really not clear to us if we're going to be able to do this kind of simulcast method with the GTR 8000 until we actually get our hands on one. It's going to have all the same wildcarding. It's supposed to be a drop-in, basically drop right in and play kind of a product to replace the Quantar once they have the analog version out early next year. So we'll have to wait till we get that, get some, and then see if we input everything the same way, if that could be used for the next generation system. So, with that, I think that finishes me up.